Hello, this is Sondra Oster Baras bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. Well, this week we start a new book. We start the book of Numbers, and the first Torah portion is Bamidbar, which literally means in the desert, and that's because we have here that God spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert. Okay, now we're now at our third location of speaking. We started with Mount Sinai, we moved to the tent of meeting, and now, of course, it is still in the tent of meeting, but we learned that it's in the Sinai desert. And indeed, what we're going to see in the book of Numbers is wandering in the Sinai desert. Initially, they're only supposed to be wandering for a very short time and going into the land of Israel, but as we will learn in a few weeks, when we get to the Torah portion of Shalach, the children of Israel will sin, and then they will end up being wandering for a total of 40 years in this Sinai desert. So in a way, this opening of the book of Bamidbar, of Numbers, kind of gives us a foreshadowing of what is to come. Yes, they're in the Sinai desert and they're going to be there for a while. One of the things that is introduced in this first of all, the name of the book, Bamidbar, in English is Numbers. And it's different from the Hebrew names we use today. It's not a translation, but the English names or even the Latin names that were the original for these different names in English for the books actually come from ancient Jewish traditions as well. The tradition we use today is that we take one of the first words in the first verse of the book and we use that as our Hebrew name. But actually, there was an ancient tradition that this book was called the Book of Censuses, or I don't know how you say that in plural, censi or whatever, but that was the original ancient name, and that's where the name Numbers comes from, because indeed the first chapters of this book is dealing with taking the census of the people of Israel. How many people are there? Also, the different tribes, the different heads of each tribe, the way the camp is organized, the flags of the camps, and a separate counting of the Levites as well. So this dealing with numbers and organizations of the camp is what really gives this book its name. But there's something unique, though, that is first introduced in this book about the way the camp is organized. We are familiar with the idea of, the nation of Israel and how many there were. We know, for example, when they left Egypt, there's a counting of all the nation of Israel, 600,000 people. And we know also there's tribal countings, and we will have tribal countings here as well. But what we have here is a subunit that is introduced to us for the first time, and that is the family unit. Every tribe is actually presented as a family unit, and within every tribe there is a separate family unit, and we bring all the family units together, and they then make up the tribe. So, for example, if I see in the very first chapter, the descendants of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house. The clans here is actually the families, okay, that my translation in English, but it's the house of the father. That's how they're actually, in the way it's of their ancestral house. The word here is actually families. The word is used here as clan, but it is more literally families, okay? It's listed by name, head by head, all males, etc. And we go through every single tribe. We will always have it listed by family of their ancestral house. And over and over and over, we get this idea of family. And I think this is not a coincidence. I mean, in a way, you could say this is extra words. What do you need it for? At the end of the day, what we really need to know is how many people are in each tribe. When it says per family, it doesn't say the names of the families. It just says per family, okay? And yet, the Bible wanted us to see that within each tribe was another very, very important unit, and that is the family. And I think this gives us a very, very important lesson. If we zoom out for a moment and we look at the Bible, and we look at the development of the story, so to speak, Right now in the book of Numbers, we are with a nation. The nation of Israel, it is a nation. It came out of it came out of Egypt, is a nation, and they are about to go in and conquer a land which they will then call their own. They are the nation of Israel, and they are about to go in and conquer the land of Israel, and they will be a nation among the nations of the world. Okay? But the Bible makes sure to tell us how we got there. Okay? So we start with Abraham, and Abraham is the father of the nation. And throughout the book of Genesis, we are telling the story of a family. It's Abraham and his sons, and then Isaac and his sons, and Jacob and his sons. And it's, of course, only when it gets to Jacob that all his sons become the nation of Israel. But when we conclude the book of Genesis, we are talking about one large family that numbers 70 people who enter into Egypt. When we get to Exodus, of course, we have a similar recap of all those people who came down, repeat some of the information we have at the end of Genesis. But then we have a very interesting, at the very beginning of Exodus, when Pharaoh first decides that he's going to start persecuting the children of Israel, he is actually the first person in history to identify what until this point was a family as a nation. And he says as follows, and this is in Exodus chapter 1, verse 9, and talking about Pharaoh. And he said to his people, look, the Israelite people are much too numerous for us. And if I say this literally, I just read the translation, but the literal translation of the Hebrew is here, the nation of the children of Israel. Okay, so until now in Genesis, we refer to the children of Israel, meaning literally the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc., of Israel, who is Jacob. It is a family, the clan of Israel, okay? And yet here, it is Pharaoh who first says, the children of Israel have become a nation, the nation of the children of Israel, okay? But it tells us a lot that the Bible saw fit to tell us how we got there, okay, that we started as a family. Here, we are already a nation, and you could say, well, that was just history, and God wanted us to see all the lovely and important things that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did, and learn from their behavior, and learn from their faith in God, and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that they were family is not so important. Here, in Numbers, God is specifically taking us back to the family union. And he's saying, you don't get to be a nation if you don't start with a family. The family is the core of the nation. It is not only the core of the nation because that's how we got there. We started with one person, his children, his grandchildren, etc. We created a family. The family got bigger, and we became a nation. But here in the book of Numbers, the message is your family will always be the most important unit of the nation. And I think this is a very important message that we take to us. And to this day, I think the Jewish people are one of the most family-oriented people in the world. And certainly in Israel today, where we have gathered together in our own land and have kind of rid ourselves of some of the external influences that have influences some of the Jews who live in other countries today. Israel is actually the most family-oriented country in the West today. It is the only Western country with an ongoing increase in its birth rate, not only amongst the Orthodox, but also among secular families. It is a country where government policies reflect the enormous appreciation that we give to families, family structures, to children, to the importance of raising children in a way that, and the government supports this in many ways, just beginning with paid maternity leave that is paid by the government, and it's a law. It's not something that an employer can decide whether or not he allows someone to take off because they had a baby. There's tremendous benefits for the woman or for the parents who have had new babies, and that's just one example. But it all begins here because God is telling us you have to strengthen your family. If you're going to become a nation, if you're going to become you're going to be able to accomplish great things as a nation if you are not standing on the strong and powerful foundations of a good family that has, and it's the parents, don't forget, who are responsible for giving the messages of God and morality and the Bible to the children. This is what a family is. And a nation of God has to rest on the strong foundation of a family who is devoted to God. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that video, and we'd like to be sure you're getting all of our video content. So just click on the subscribe button below as well as on the notification bell, and that way you will have easy access to all our material. We look forward to staying in touch with you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.